Somebody has uploaded a YouTube video that is so dumb, so completely incorrect that they have basically assembled the YouTube Avengers. How does someone anger the internet's nicest people like Jacksepticeye and MrBeast, make a bunch of other creators you've probably heard of drop response videos, and make points that are so completely invalid, I of all people come back early from a 9-month break just to personally tell you that your video is trash? Let's find out. Hi, I'm a random person on the internet. You're a random person on the internet. And together, we're going to talk about MrBeast, Chris Tyson, and Sunny V2. But first, let's talk about me. So, hi, I haven't posted a video in 9 months. During those 9 months, a lot of people wished me well and were really supportive, and I honestly really appreciate it. And I just want to let you know that during this time, I have been thriving. I've been doing so well, in fact, that I've actually been making my way back to YouTube, not just with this quick video. You know my long, deep dive videos that I'm known for? I have actually, for the past few months, been working on another one of those, which I will be uploading here on this channel before the end of the month. And you are not going to want to miss it. You're just gonna have to wait until that video drops to see who it's about. But speaking of that, stay tuned to the end of this video and I'll tell you how you can get a shout out in my upcoming one. But yeah, with that being said, I wasn't even really supposed to come back until I finished that one. But when I saw the absolute garbage video that the YouTuber in question dropped, I was like, you know what? I already went through the hassle of setting up my camera and my fancy new background, so why don't we just go for it? So before we watch the video in question, I'll just tell you who we're talking about for those of you who may not know. I mean, honestly, Jimmy, or MrBeast himself, needs no introduction as he's literally the largest individual creator on the platform. But if you've heard of MrBeast and you've never watched any of his content, then you may not have seen the other subject of today's video, Chris Tyson. Chris is part of MrBeast's crew, appearing in a ton of his videos over the years, and they've also been personal friends for even longer. And just for context, Chris has stated that they use any pronouns. So the final piece of this puzzle is the YouTuber who uploaded the video in question, Sunny V2. Sunny is a large documentary/commentary channel with over 3 million subscribers who's uploaded a ton of videos, but the one that instantly put him on everyone's bad side is called Why Chris Will Soon Be a Nightmare for MrBeast. So let's watch it.
In mid-2022, fans began to notice that Chris Tyson was changing.
Okay, so right from the jump, this is already such a dramatic way of editing and presenting the story. Like, why the impact sound effect? Why the black screen on changing?
Chris began to display increasingly feminine traits, making tweets such as, "I finally got my nails done at a nail tech."
I should probably go to a nail tech, honestly, but I like painting my own nails. It's a nice way to waste a little bit of time. Though lately, I have found myself changing into a black screen.
Additionally, Chris would highlight that his facial appearance had changed significantly since the start of the pandemic.
Yeah, same here. You ain't special. Well, you are special, but not for that reason. But no, obviously, the point of that tweet and the point that Sunny V2's video has been making so far is that Chris changed up their appearance quite a bit. Got it.
His Twitter photos kept insinuating that Chris was becoming more feminine, with this same kind of look showing up in his MrBeast appearances.
So what Sunny has just spent the first few minutes of this video describing is something I like to call a non-issue. No amount of dramatic music or other intentional editing on Sunny's part will change the fact that what he's talking about literally does not matter. Someone changing the way they present themselves shouldn't even be a little bit controversial, but of course, according to the internet, it should be extremely controversial.
Viral TikToks, such as this one with 700,000 likes, stating, "How did Chris go from this to this?"
I love the sad face emoji, like, oh. I hate when people express themselves. Anyway, up until this point, I was actually pretty neutral on Sunny's video so far. He hadn't really shared any opinions thus far, and I sort of just assumed he was going to follow it all up by saying, this is ridiculous. But instead of that, he just chose to be ridiculous himself.
The true catalyst for Chris Tyson's feminization instead seemed to have come from his marriage.
Sunny goes on to dig all the way through Chris's personal history in some outlandish attempt to prove that they turned feminine because they got divorced. Apparently.
He'd removed his wedding ring, with the ring's absence correlating perfectly with the very first post in which he'd painted his nails.
I like how he felt the need to circle all 5 fingers, just in case it wasn't clear that their nails were painted. Anyway, I just want to emphasize that this is an insane jump to conclusions. Literally just bringing up completely unrelated personal issues from Chris's life to use them as some sort of behind the scenes explanation for completely harmless behavior. Sonny also kept doing things like this.
Chris went from lighting campfires and raising a family with his beautiful wife to now trying to be a wife with his man buns and long nails.
Where he would just read a hate comment and then provide absolutely no rebuttal to it whatsoever. Like, do you agree with the comment? If not, you could say something. But the thing is, the tone of Sonny's video does agree with these comments.
While there was a possibility that Chris would make efforts to return to his former self, he'd rather do the opposite and double down on his feminine image.
He'd rather double down is an inherently negative way to frame that. People almost exclusively use the term double down when they're trying to make a point that someone has committed to a wrong choice. And Sonny's entire video is already starting to frame Chris's transition as the wrong choice and inherently negative. But trust me, it gets so much worse. Anyway, Chris shared that they had actually been undergoing hormone replacement therapy, and Sonny shared more responses to that.
There goes a father figure the kid won't ever be able to look up to. Hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. Weak man times.
I'm gonna be real with y'all. Y'all really overestimate the importance of fathers, okay? Like, a good father, it's obviously a benefit to any child, but not all y'all are good. And conversely, the absence of a father doesn't mean that a child's going to turn out weak, or whatever point that this convoluted weak man times argument was trying to make.
Chris responded to this comment by stating, "This is just more dog whistling that somehow trans and GNC folks aren't safe around kids. Tucker begs for me to come back when I leave for like 2 days to film. He is so loved and happy."
I'm really glad Chris responded to that tweet because they had every right to. Y'all are really out here dragging people's children into Twitter discourse because you don't agree with them. Are y'all hearing yourselves? Anyway, after bringing up the fact that Chris's friends defended them, Sonny V2 takes like a positive tone for about 2 seconds and then immediately implies that Chris's transition is actually ruining MrBeast's friend group.
In some ways, it was nice to see the boys standing up for Chris on Twitter. However, the situation has already begun to change the dynamic within the videos.
Circling the dislikes to prove a point is actually really funny when you consider the fact that Sonny's video has an even worse dislike ratio. But anyways, this next part is pretty much the biggest reach that Sonny takes in this entire video, where he tries to show us this footage to prove that Chris is ruining the atmosphere in the friend group, but like, that's literally not what's happening at all.
Chris did make these bizarre jokes about Jimmy being female, making him incredibly uncomfortable.
Oh my God, Jimmy, look, they drew you. Jimmy, they drew you so well. It looks just like you.
Fellas, is it incredibly uncomfortable to give a small laugh? The joke wasn't even about MrBeast being a woman. The joke is literally that the character is not MrBeast. This part of Sonny's video was so insanely forced. Like, once again, dramatic music does not change the fact that what you're presenting is not dramatic at all. In fact, I think Sonny even realized that the music wasn't enough because he actually added captions to the next couple of clips to project the scenario onto them when it clearly was not actually happening.
Oh, yes.
Oh my God, it's Jimmy.
How did fan art? This is what we were looking for. Be brave, be honest, be kind.
These captions are what made me realize that this isn't just Sonny misinterpreting the footage. This is him trying to get us to believe a blatant piece of misinformation. That way, the rest of his video makes sense.
Nice shirt.
Thanks. Nice shirt.
Nice shoes.
If this reads to you as bizarre, uncomfortable, or weird, as Sonny has described it, then you're basically just telling me that you've never actually had an interaction with a friend group, which is like, fine, but I'm not really sure how that's Chris's problem. Stuff like this is so annoying to me as a content creator. Like, when I see people trying to twist footage into something it's clearly not. If your video is not strong enough to stand up on its own, then you should not have been making the video in the first place. End of story. Now, this next part is absolutely bizarre. Sonny begins doing this weird pros and cons analysis of what will happen if Chris continues to transition through the lens of, and I kid you not, how it will affect MrBeast's YouTube channel performance.
If Chris continues to transition, would it be unreasonable to say that he could jeopardize some of the personality traits which made him a successful member in the first place?
I feel like, and this is just me guessing, but I feel like it's safe to say that Chris has probably already weighed the pros and cons of transitioning. I'm not really sure that they need some random YouTuber to do it for them. Sonny's out here running a cost-benefit analysis like this is some sort of hypothetical situation. Chris has already made their decision. It's just not something that Sunny seems to respect or even acknowledge. And apparently, MrBeast's content is more important.
Many comments supportive of Chris, who imply that there'll be millions of queer kids who look up to him, although this doesn't necessarily mean that it'll add any value to the videos.
How would millions of children having a positive role model not be a value add to a video? You're just saying things that don't make sense, because at this point you would rather do anything other than respect a trans person's decision. Okay? In fact, this was actually the point that the entire video just clicked for me, and I realized that Sunny doesn't even really view Chris as a person at all. Like, listen to this.
Adding over-the-top LGBT characters for the sake of relatability rarely works as intended, and is often nothing more than a distraction from the premise of the movie or video. On top of this, it can be uncomfortable and unrelatable for the silent majority.
Where do I even start with this? Okay, I'll try starting with the obvious. Chris Tyson is not an over-the-top LGBT character. Chris, and I can't believe I have to say this, is a real person. What level of delusion have we reached where we can't differentiate between real people and characters anymore? This is such a concerning and off-putting way of talking about people.
Although, as we have seen, a situation like Chris's does have the potential to create an otherworldly amount of discussion, which could be seen as a benefit for the MrBeast brand.
Okay, you know what? The boomers were right. The internet was a mistake. The only benefit you can find in Chris's transition is the fact that maybe, just maybe, it'll boost the performance of the MrBeast YouTube channel. What is even happening here? Never mind the fact that Chris said HRT saved their life, and that they did this to improve their mental health, and that it's made them a better parent. None of that matters when, you know, MrBeast may get 103 million views instead of 102.
An inescapable situation is a pretty good way of describing the drama, which is also why it deserves the harsh label of being a nightmare.
And what is the drama in this case? A trans person existing. It should not be controversial to exist, right? Like, am I crazy? Have I said something strange? Because I don't think so. I genuinely don't. Now, if this wasn't enough, and trust me, it was, Sunny goes on to imply that maybe Chris should actually just leave their friend group. You know, just stop being in the videos altogether, because it would be better for branding.
The only clean solution, should things go south, might be for Chris to resign himself, and even then rumors and bad press will be unavoidable. Whether it be arrogance or ignorance, Chris seems oblivious to how this whole thing might impact Jimmy, forgetting that he achieved his current level of success by avoiding this exact type of drama.
So in this video, you have decided that Chris is either ignorant or arrogant, blamed them for an imaginary problem with MrBeast's channel performance, made up theories about their divorce that you dragged up for no reason, claimed that they're making their friends uncomfortable in their everyday interactions, and suggested that maybe, just maybe, they should leave their friend group entirely to make everybody else feel better. And those are just the things that Sunny said explicitly. When you factor in all of the unchecked hate comments sprinkled throughout the video, coupled with the fact that the entire premise is about something that was never a problem in the first place, you realize that this video is, in the purest sense of the word, garbage. And I'm glad that it's over. They should have considered the completely unfeasible possibility that they might mess up their friend's big YouTube channel before they transition. Like, that is actually the most terminally online take I have heard in a very long time. But, like all bad takes on the internet, this one also garnered a bunch of support. Despite having over 100,000 dislikes, it has even more likes. And where there are likes, there are supportive comments, like this one. Watching Jimmy smile during that weird fan art joke genuinely looked like it was full of pain. Let me help you out a little bit. This is a look full of pain, because this is genuinely how I felt while I was reading your comment. Not even so much because of the commenter, but just because of the fact that Sunny's blatant media manipulation was effective on them, as well as the 50,000 other people who liked that comment. Jimmy is such a great guy. I hate seeing him in that situation. Jimmy does seem like a great guy, but he's literally not in a situation. Like, do you know who's actually being affected by all of this nastiness that's being directed towards Chris? Chris. The fact that people are blaming them for problems that are actually being caused by the people throwing the blame is completely warped. I would never have thought that this would be the thing that could destroy Jimmy's career. Okay, you know what? maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Mr. Beast's career is in jeopardy. Let's go see how his recent videos have been doing. Oh, okay, 113 million views, 100 million views, 133 million views. Yeah, hear me out, but I'm pretty sure that getting over 1.1 billion views over the past month means that your channel is probably going to be fine. Once again, we are discussing an issue that doesn't exist. Anyway, I do want to point out that not everyone who watched the video supported it. Like I said, there were plenty of dislikes, and a lot of people shared their opinion in the comments as well. Chris isn't a character. They're a real human being with emotions. It's not all business and marketing. Friendship is a thing, and nothing says Jimmy is forced to accept this. Maybe he wants to keep his friend and cares a lot about them. Like, so many things are wrong with this. There are a lot of things wrong with that video, but honestly, this comment covers a good deal of them. Taking such a transactional approach to dissecting someone's friendship is a bizarre and not at all normal way of talking about people. I'm glad there were comments like this among the insanity. Otherwise, I might have gone insane. In fact, this video didn't just cause a stir within its own comment section. Other big channels such as Mogul Mail by Ludwig and the H3 podcast by Ethan and Ela shared their opinions on the video, and I don't think they would mind me saying that their opinions were not very positive. If you haven't already, I would go watch those videos because they're great and they bring up a bunch of additional points that I didn't even have time to get into. Now, ultimately, this wasn't too surprising because the H3 podcast is always weighing in on internet discourse, and this wouldn't be the first time that Ludwig has covered something like this either. What was genuinely surprising to me were the other creators who chimed in. Creators who are pretty much known for never having a negative word about anyone. Ever. For example, you're never gonna guess who reacted to this tweet from Jay Aubrey. So fellow commentary channel Jay Aubrey said, "This is one of the worst videos I've ever seen. Sunny's conclusion practically blames Chris for not taking the Mr. Beast brand into account before transitioning. Imagine showing such little regard for the welfare of a human being." And personally, I completely agree with that tweet, but I guess I wasn't the only one. Jacksepticeye of all people replied, simply stating, "Garbage video." I want you all to listen to me very carefully, okay? If Jacksepticeye, if Sean William Septiceye tells me that one of my videos is garbage, I'm deleting my channel. That's it. It's over. There are just some people where you know if you piss them off, you need to rethink your entire life. My man literally has nothing but positivity to spread, and he still took time out of his day to tell you that your video was garbage. Are you not embarrassed? Anyway, the last reaction I want to go over is from a creator who's in a similar boat. Mr. Beast himself, who pretty much never weighs in on a controversy, like ever. He had clearly hit his limit, and it's obvious that Sunny's video was the tipping point. So a Twitter user said, "This new Sunny V2 video feels really invasive for all the wrong reasons. Like, why did you make this? You delved into Chris's marriage. It's just really off-putting and unnecessary." Again, another great response pointing out the obvious and major flaws with Sunny's video. And Mr. Beast himself responded to this tweet with something that I'm going to let be the final word on the subject since it's coming straight from the source. "Yeah, this is getting absurd. Chris isn't my nightmare. He's my effing friend and things are fine. All this transphobia is starting to piss me off." Mr. Beast so rarely uses the F-bomb on Twitter, and I've never seen him use it in a context where he was legitimately angry about something. And he has every right to be angry about this. Personally, I'm really happy that he stood up for his friend as well as calling out Sunny and everybody's blatant transphobia because at the end of the day, my friends, that is exactly what that was. Overall, there's one really important thing that I want you to take away from this video that I haven't mentioned yet. The way that Chris is being treated is not just some crazy YouTube drama that's gonna blow over in a week, okay? Unfortunately, the way that Chris is being treated happens anytime a trans person does literally anything. You can see people having a meltdown over Bud Light's sponsorship of Dylan Mulvaney. We all remember the disgusting way people reacted when Elliot Page came out. Basically, any story I have ever seen about a trans person doing something positive causes this to happen. So while I am happy to call out things like this because it's not right, this is not the beginning or end of it at all. We also need to make sure that we're not enabling this in our own lives, teaching it to the next generation, or letting anyone think that this behavior, which has been completely normalized, is normal at all, because frankly, it's not. Trans people aren't going to magically disappear just because you chose to be uncomfortable with them. And the sooner Sunny and everybody else realizes this, the better off we will all be. Anyway, this has been my first video in 9 months, and I am psyched. Like I said earlier, this isn't a one-off. I have been working really hard on my deep dive video. The subject is kind of questionable, but hey, at least there's a lot to unpack. Speaking of the subject, remember that shout out I mentioned earlier? Okay, so I thought it would be fun to have people guess who the video is about. I haven't posted this anywhere, so everybody just gets like an equal chance to guess. Who could possibly have motivated me to return to the platform after so many months of absence? Go ahead and put your guess in the comments along with a brief description of why you think that might be the case. Now, I know a lot of people are probably going to get the answer right, but I'm going to be choosing one correct comment and featuring it in the beginning of my upcoming deep dive video. And about the video, like I said, it's coming out later this month, which is actually very soon. So as always, thank you for the support. Thank you for the patience if you happen to wait. Thank you for just watching this video in the first place. And I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye.